Right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Pastor Julian here from Ask Pastor Julian. You can reach me at askpastorjulian.com. And generally, I know you're used to seeing me here on Wednesday nights live doing my segment, but tonight, because of the recent events, the recent drop of the platinum plan from President Donald Trump, I thought it would be great to have a discussion about it. And I've also included some of my good friends and brothers who are all intelligent Black men, working class Black men, family men, educated men. We even have a doctor in the house. So I'm hoping and praying that this segment will be something that you will enjoy and it will bless you and empower you. And I have some interesting concepts with this because I have these men here. They are all believers, but they don't all agree in regards to how we're voting. And we know the concept is for the last 50 years, the mindset is that all Black people should be Democrats, but not all are. And so with that push and with that thought process, with that thrust to try to push a lot of Black Democrats to the Republican Party, we do have some conservative leeway. We have some conservative talks and conversations. We have some liberal talks and conversations. So I brought all these men in to talk about these opposing sides of Black men, educated Black men, during this time and during this season. So we're going to dive into this discussion on tonight because I believe that this is going to help somebody. We plan to be entertaining. We're going to laugh a little bit. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to be open. So sit back, relax, because you're going to enjoy this segment on today. So here I have with me four intelligent Black brothers, educated Black brothers who are here on this segment. We have Brother Philip Dunn, who is, as I said, a family man. He also has his own business where he's promoting and producing and pushing the Black economic situation by pushing and boosting Black business owners. So he's all about business ownership in the Black community and entrepreneurship. So thank you so much, Philip Dunn, for being here on tonight. I'm going to, I guess we'll do this. We'll go ahead and give it a minute for everyone to introduce themselves. So Philip, I kind of introduced you. You can go ahead, go from that point, and then we'll move from there.
Oh, thanks, Julian. Thanks for having me. Thanks to the panel for allowing me to participate with you guys tonight. And I'm real excited to be talking about this platinum plan that President Trump has put out, and hopefully try to compare and contrast it against Vice President Biden's plan. A little bit about myself. I started the Black Business Focus Group with Julian Robinson and Brock White about 5 years ago. It's a group economics platform designed to generate more business for Black-owned businesses with the end result of building and strengthening the Black community. So I feel real, I guess you could say, excited about this particular plan because I feel like there's some good stuff in it. I just don't believe in the person that's pushing it. So I'm looking forward to the debate and the discussion tonight and to kick it around a little bit more.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. I'm going to swing on over to Marcus Brown. He's one of the hosts of the racial roundtable discussion that we have, discussion that we have every week. So go ahead, Marcus, and go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit.
Marcus Brown. I was introduced to Julian by way of a fellow panel host, panel attendee tonight, Elijah Hill. My background is I've kind of been everywhere, done everything. My current employment is I work for myself. I work in business consulting, so do business optimization consulting, and I'm just now getting into the financial services distribution game. So recently, as a matter of fact, yesterday just got my fingerprints done. I got my life insurance license. So going to start that journey, get on to securities licensing to be able to help people with investments, budgeting, financial coaching, with the focus on the education aspect and helping our people. You know, we're not getting that type of education, especially at the elementary level. And we have a lot of power, we have a lot of money tied up in the Black community, the exits of Black community. And I think that is one of the great plights that is still manifesting in our current day. So.
All right, man. It's a pleasure to have you on tonight, man. An absolute pleasure. I'm going to swing down to Brother Elijah, that praise and worship leader. I'm going to ask him to come on and introduce himself too.
Hey, what's up? My name is Elijah Hill. I have been a music director and worship leader for the past 10 to 11 years. I also work in the education, in higher education. And I started a racism roundtable not too long ago after the George Floyd murder. I've never been much of a outspoken person in regards to my beliefs in racial inequality and things like that, due to the fact that, in the past I've served in multicultural churches, and so I felt the need to kind of straddle. I don't want to say straddle the fence, but I felt the need to kind of keep my opinions to myself. But I'm no longer in that place. And so I started the Racism Roundtable, in which we have discussions just about weekly about racism in America. In addition to that, I should be finishing my a degree in biblical counseling at College of Biblical Studies within the next couple months. Thank God that's almost over. And I'm just happy to be here with you, brothers.
Man, we're happy to have you, man. Happy to have you. Okay, lastly, we have Dr. Wright in the house. So I'm going to ask him to come on in and give us some wisdom right quick.
Good evening, everyone. I want to appreciate Julian for inviting me. Appreciate all of you other gentlemen for joining, for having this conversation. I think it's needed. I think what America needs to see is that Black America is not a monolith, and that we can disagree, but we can still love each other for what God created us, and that is the exceptional individuals of the African American male perspective. I've been an educator for quite some time now. This is going into my 11th year as an educator, formerly being paid as an educator for 11 years now. And God has blessed that I have just this past week, as Julian indicated, I've successfully defended my dissertation at the University of Lamar University and received a doctorate of educational leadership from there. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come on and just be a voice of the Black male perspective from the north side of Houston, if you will.
All right, man. We appreciate that, man. So I want to jump into this because, and let me say this a little bit before we get this deep dive into here. Now, this Black economic plan that Trump has put out. Now, I know that Philip and Reginald know this, but I have been asking for something like this from either candidate for a while. I've been wondering, what is the plan for Black people? What is the plan from either candidate? What are you going to give us? What are you offering us at this time? And I've also said I believe that Trump is probably going to come out with something right before the election in regards to this. So I really was interested to hear what was the plan, because we hear a whole lot of stuff about who believes in this, how Trump is, how Biden is, but I really wanted a solid plan from either candidate about what they plan to do with Black, or was there a Black agenda at all? So I appreciate there being presented one. And so I wanted to discuss this. And this is the only reason why I did this, because usually for my channel, I usually don't get into politics. I know it's been difficult this year not to get into it, but I generally don't get into politics. I deal with more inspirational things, and I deal with more entrepreneurship things. But because this is a Black economic plan, it does affect business owners. It does affect our economy, our economics personally to us. I thought it would be good for us to come in and discuss this as, like I said, the middle class. I believe all of us, at least in the middle class, working men on tonight. So I think this is really, really good to deal with this and talk about this on tonight. So with that said, I want to bring up pull up. I thought I had it here. I want to pull up the actual plan. I thought I had it up. Let me look and see.
While you're looking for it, Jay, can I just kind of talk about some of the high points of the plan?
Yeah, sure.
So, Jay's gonna bring up the plan. It looks like there's probably about 4 or 5 high points, and then there's some detail that goes below it. The first point is Black economic empowerment and access to capital. The second one is more education opportunities. The third is better and cheaper healthcare. I like that word coming from our president, cheaper healthcare. And then there's safety and justice. So as you're pulling up the plan, I'm going to kind of dive, just go one more level lower. Under the economic empowerment, what the president is offering is jobs. I'll just kind of point out that right now, I think the Black unemployment rate in the Black community is around 13, 14%. When he came into office, it was around 6 to 7%. So it's doubled in the last 4 years. So I'm kind of interested to see, what more he can do for jobs right now for Black America. He also wants to fuel access to capital for Black-owned businesses. We know the last round of the stimulus packages, PPP, I think out of all that money that was doled out, less than 2% of those dollars went to Black-owned businesses. So real interested to see how he's going to make up ground for that. More education opportunities. Betsy DeVos is probably a shining example of why we need to focus on education right now. Our community is being robbed when it comes to education. Better and cheaper healthcare. President is suing right now to repeal the Affordable Care Act, or Obama care, as we like to refer to it. So, and he hadn't produced yet a plan for healthcare. So it is really interesting to see, what he's going to do. And I'm being facetious here. Safety.
Let me say this in regards to healthcare. Jumping on that, that is very interesting to me regarding the healthcare portion, because you're repealing healthcare to implement your own plan of healthcare. And so I'm interested in seeing, what is going to be the difference if you're going to push that out there? What is that going to be? Because if you're going to eliminate one to produce yours, then how much different or how much better do you think it's going to be? Go ahead. I see you, Marcus. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't raising my hand. I was scratching my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if I can interject real quickly, I want to be as clear as possible. I don't want to necessarily portray that Donald Trump is trying to eliminate Obamacare, but what he is trying to do is going to court right now to eliminate key portions of the Affordable Care Act, without which the Affordable Care Act cannot be as impactful or be enforced or be effective as driven, right? So the two key tenets that he's trying to that he's in court right now to overthrow is the individual mandate, not necessarily the individual mandate, but the where everyone has to pay into it, right? And then also too the coverage for pre-existing conditions. Those are the two key pillars of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, that without which it's kind of like having a corn on the cob for dinner, but you lost your dentures. So it's kind of like you're still gonna go hungry.
And let me back up and say this. Now, this plan was actually given during a Blacks for Trump rally in Atlanta, Georgia. He unveiled this plan there at the Blacks for Trump rally. And with that said, when he did this unveiling, there were several, of course, Blacks there. There were several leaders there, and there were several Black preachers there who got on the stage and actually promoted and pushed not only the plan but Trump himself. And so it is an issue, because they say we say we don't want to be divided, or we want everybody to be on the same side. But the truth is, all Black people feel differently when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Biden, when it comes to Republicans, when it comes to Democrats, when it comes to liberals, when it comes to conservatives. Not every Black person feels the same when it comes to the actual party. And I was talking to my mother-in-law, who was at my home yesterday, and I said, there is no party for the Black Christian, specifically for there's no major party for the Black Christian. You have to kind of get in where you fit in. And that one of the reasons why I was asking for what the Black plan was and what it's going to be. And now he spoke about having religious liberty. He spoke about having school choice. He spoke about monies for small Black businesses. He spoke about money for Black neighborhoods and communities. He spoke about all these different things. Now, we're looking at the plan in itself. To me, the plan looks good. The plan itself looks good. Now, there has been discussion on whether or not the plan is going to be true, if it's going to be carried out, if he's being honest about it, and also why now.
So I want to chime in on that too. So I didn't catch the rally, but I have reviewed the plan, and I've got probably like most of us on the call, different sections. I highlighted some to, there's fluffy language, right? So my background is in sales and marketing, right? So anybody had to deal with writing sales copy, writing attractive, what do we learn in school? Glittering generalities, right? So there's fluff in there, and then I highlight some things that were more specific. That's an interesting point you bring up, Julian, and there is the plan. The way I view Trump is he is a man of of incredible ego. Okay, I see this as a hallmark in the legacy of American presidents. I think he has a personal vested interest to make it work, or to do all he can, at least to make it appear that he's trying to make it work and get it done, because this is something that is going to be definitive of his legacy, right? And so I think from a perspective of, will there be actual investment and actual tangible steps taken? I believe yes. Will it be to the degree that is satisfactory, or is he going to check all of the items that are on here? I don't know. Much of this is subject to legislation. So if you read through it, much of this is going to be subject to, the Congress, House and Senate, allocating these dollars, budgeting for these things, approving these things in as line items in the budget. He's talking, there was one in education, he's talking, not education, but in the jobs portion, making the, he's going to try to make a permanent, making permanent the Minority Business Development Agency and appointing its leader as Assistant Secretary of Commerce, creating a sub-office. So these are actions that have to go through committee. They have to go through several departments. There has to be, budget allocated for this. So where I think most of this is going to become stagnant and die is going to be in the power struggle. And of course, dealing with politicians, that you're going to have your batch from either party that want to, appear that they're more versed in it, or they can do it better.
And let me add to that what Marcus is saying. President Trump, we have a president right now that is notorious for, putting the blame on Democrats whenever, major initiatives don't pass. So a lot of the fluff that Marcus is talking about, and some of the stuff that requires, legislative action, it's very easy for him to write all this down on a piece of paper 40 days before the election and say, here, Black people, this is what, I want to give to you. Knowing that this could die in the House, it could die in the Senate, it could be defeated even before, it hits, official paper. So that's the type of president that we're dealing with. Then also I want to add in, Julian, you mentioned that there were ministers and preachers and folks of faith that supported this plan. I'm interested to see what Black economists did he talk to? Did he talk to William Darity about this? Did he talk to Dr. Claude Anderson about this? Did he visit with Black people who are actually, suffering from years and years of systemic oppression to design this plan? Or was this something that, he came up with on the back of a napkin? So, and then we know that his history is such that he doesn't follow through on promises to minorities. So we want to make sure that we vet this, do what Marcus did, go through line by line and read this and make sure that you understand what it means, figure out what's the wheat and what's the chaff, as they used to say in East Texas, and then really hold them accountable during these debates coming up.
Yeah. And then also too, when you stated who did he consult with, because it would be just in my thinking, right? If I'm putting together a plan and I'm soliciting consultation and counseling from someone, putting this plan together, an economic plan for or a plan for Black America, those Black individuals are individuals that I want to see nominated for secretary positions, right? So that's the follow through, right? But then if we look at it, it says make the Minority Business Development Agency permanent. Okay, great. But there's a lot of things that go into that minority, right? That minority business. We understand just the minority grants or the block grants that some municipalities and state and local governments are bound to give minority contracts. A large percentage of that does not go to people of color, businesses of color, period. It go to women. And oftentimes, those businesses owned by those females are shell companies that are parented by those females' husbands or their fathers or their brothers. Those type of things. And when we talk about when we speak of institutional racism or institutional things that are put into place that helps, it may not be the intention of holding and keeping Black America down, but that is the end result. And so when we fail to even engage into that type of conversation, therein lies the problem. And if we just look at the plan altogether, it is a beautiful infographic. It's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful pamphlet. It's 2 pages. 2 pages. If we then, and I'm not, it could be a lot, once we delve into it, but that's the plan that's been put forth. If we look at the plan that's been put forth by Joe Biden and his campaign, it's 23 pages long. 26 pages long. And it's entitled Lift Every Voice, the Biden Plan for Black America. 26 pages long, contrasted with the Platinum Plan. The Platinum Plan, 2 pages long. We get some bullet points. Okay, but where's the teeth? What's going to happen? How is this going to be implemented? Can you expound on that for me, please? And then it was key that when Marcus was sharing earlier, he said, and which we all know, no one needs to admit it because it's evident that President Trump, and I do give him that respect of calling him President Trump because he is the president of the United States. Marcus has stated, he is driven by ego. He's as I would say, he's an egomaniac. And it's the appearance, right, that he's concerned about. Or that, I'm sorry, I won't project that onto him. I'll say it's the appearance that I believe that he's concerned about. If it was something so ingrained in you, if it was something that's motivating you, this plan would have some check marks by it because you've now been in office for 4 years. And the only African-American individual you have in your cabinet is a brilliant neonatal brain surgeon. But you did not place him in where his expertise could be really spoken to. You placed him in housing and urban development.
Correct.
To me, is that all we good for? Talking about housing and urban development? But you said that you're going to hire the best. And there was a unique opportunity presented to you, Donald Trump. Donald Trump had a unique opportunity presented to him to really change the game across the board in politics, to bring in a new wave of interest and involvement and activism. But for lack of a better phrase, I believe it was squandered. And so we get to this 2-page plan that's presented to us less than 2 months before an election. Is it supposed to be manna from heaven? We've been wandering in this wilderness for how long of your presidency, and we just now getting here? 2 pages worth of promises. promises is all. And
Oh, he
that's
has. There are some completed bullet points, Reginald. And forgive me for. Let me interject rather
draw
than.
my attention to them for me, please.
So one of them is, so when you go to safety and justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get down to safe streets. So one of his major accomplishments that has been touted is the First Step Act. That piece of legislation that's been signed that deals with federal prison reform. And so that bill focuses on reducing the federal prison population. And I believe, I don't have the bullet points, but in summary, the bill also freed, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of mostly Black prisoners who had been convicted on a lot of nonviolent crime, a lot of low-level crime, doing a lot of long years, drug-related stuff, and especially there's been a lot of controversy over marijuana because such heavy sentencing was leveled against people for marijuana possession and distribution. And so now that a lot of science is coming out and technology is coming out, so a lot of those things are changing. So that is one thing that was done, and I think they said something like 90% of the people who benefited from that or who were even had their sentences reduced or completed were about 90% of them were Black. That's been heavily touted for him as an accomplishment on that. And I have,
So in doing the research on the First Step Act, right? That was signed into law in 2018.
Correct.
Okay. Signed into law in 2018. However, it was not crafted in the White House. So he might get credit for signing it, but it's not his brainchild. And so that's my impotence of it. You can take credit for it, and I'll give you credit for signing it into law. Absolutely. However, what of your own conceptual design? Because you are, as you stated yourself, a stable genius. So if you're a stable genius, put that genius to work. Put pen and paper to it, and give us something to read since you don't enjoy reading. And hey, don't get me wrong, I don't enjoy reading that much either. However, I would never run for president and not read. You want to tell so it's. I give you credit where credit is due. I give you credit for signing it into law in 2018. Okay, in December of 2018. But I can't give you credit for designing it.
Correct.
So Reginald, I know you mentioned Biden's plan. Do you have any points to share with us regards to Biden's plan that's specifically for Black Americans? Because that's what we're trying to point out tonight. So
the entire plan, as I stated, is 26. When I printed it out, it's 26 pages long. I haven't finished going through all of it, but it's itemized quite extensively. If you give me a couple of minutes, I can finish going through it and doing my little highlights on it, and then we can talk about that.
Okay, and let me say this with that, because I'm very specific when I say Black Americans, because I know a lot of times when we try to put policies out, when policies are trying to be drafted for Black Americans, it's usually given over into minorities. It turns from Black people to minorities to help it get passed. So I'm asking specifically, when I say Black Americans, I'm talking about Black folk. So
okay, for example, we can talk about one of the pillars of his economic plan, because everything that we do to spur the economy at this point needs to be COVID focused, because in all honesty, and as Phil has already spoken to, the unemployment rate of African Americans when Trump took office, or President Trump took office, what you say, Phil, was 8% or 7%?
27%, 8%, yeah.
7%. And so what I won't do, I won't blame President Trump for the entirety of the doubling of unemployment in Black America, because all of America has increased in unemployment. But what I will say is this: if there is not a specific and explicit plan to get that thing turned around, specifically for the African American community, we know that we will be left out. And I don't want to, and also too, what I don't want to say that it is intentionally meant to stifle Black American growth. What I think the central purpose or the central issue with President Trump and his administration is the well-to-do and well-connected will get ahead. That's what it is. It's about self-empowerment and increasing wealth on oneself. However, if I go back to former President Biden's plan, he's talking about with regard to the PPP funds for small businesses. His plan is to reserve 50%, right? Half of all new PPP funds for small businesses with 50 employees or less. Then he also goes on to say, while this will help the vast majority of small businesses, it should also help target funding to minority-owned businesses, given 98% of all minority and women-owned businesses have fewer than 50 employees. And this is the thing. If we focus, and I've said it already, just because you're minority doesn't necessarily mean that's Black, right? So let's understand that. However, if you reserve 50% of those funds for minority-owned businesses, right, then the portion of the pie that African Americans or Black America gets to eat gets larger.
It's larger, higher percentage.
Larger. Yeah.
I think you made a good point earlier by saying, when we talk about minorities, especially when it's under Hub, because I worked with Hub when I was at U of H, and I knew then most of the time the benefits were going to quote unquote women-owned businesses, but like you said earlier, their husband owned it, or their brother owned it, or their son owned it, and all they had to do was to get over the hump was to prove that the woman owned 51% of the business, and the rest of the business and was fully ran. The business was fully ran by the husband, by the brother, by the father, by the son, or whatever. But 51% was under her name, and they got a lot of the funding because they went through. Look, I saw the evidence myself of it when we did the spreadsheets and all of that stuff. So yeah, it was definitely there. Go ahead, Phil. You were saying something.
No, I'm just going to turn our attentions to, if you want to do just a simple comparison, President Trump just recently rolled back fair housing protections that were put in place under the Obama-Biden era. And this was specifically designed to, smooth out and eliminate any discrimination in housing practices. He rolled that back. So that's going to disproportionately impact the Black community. On the other hand, Joe Biden, part of his plan is to hold accountable the financial institutions that have, systemically preyed on the Black community for decades, for years. So,
speaking of Wells Fargo, and we can talk about him too, and the foolishness he said, amen. But yeah, continue.
So you can tie it all in together. And so what we're facing is a president that, really either doesn't understand race and racism, or is secretly pushing an agenda that encourages racism. And so we don't want a situation where we take a look at this 2-page document 30 days before an election, where he only spoke with folks that prayed 2 or 3 times a day and didn't speak with economists. We've got to really take a look at this for what it is, and it's basically a sham, is what it is. And I would say that less than 10% of this would go through if he were reelected.
Come on, I'm loving it. Come on, I'm loving it.
I would like to interject for the sake of intellectual consistency. Dr. Wright, can I call you Dr. Wright? I'll call you Dr. Wright.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
The point you brought up the point of what specifically has Trump brought out or approved or signed that was a product of his creation, his brainchild. And I would counter that and say, I don't believe that this 26-page document is Biden's brainchild. In all fairness, I don't think this is something that he constructed, right? These are people who are, staffers, all, their whole
entourage. Yeah, let me be clear. let me be clear. When I said what has he created, when you are the president of the United States, the entire White House or West Wing organization, you are given credit for that. So when I say what has he created, I mean what have you and your team in the West Wing, with the power of the presidency behind you, and all of your secretaries and undersecretaries and the government paid researchers that you have, all of that entire apparatus behind you, what have you all collectively put together? So I'm not throwing that out there and to say, okay, well, Donald Trump has not put pen to paper. No, Donald Trump or President Trump and his administration. See, that's what I mean.
Agree. And my counter is, we can level that exact same question in exact same context to Joe Biden when it comes to these proposals, and all of this stuff kind of sounds like a wish list. This platinum plan, this is a sales flyer.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's a very lovely infographic. This is features and benefits, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell you my platinum plan.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance, whether it's some type of protection, this is a sales document.
Yeah, it's a commercial on paper, but this is the key, right? One car dealership on the north side of Houston can run a commercial, and another car dealership on the east side of Houston can run a commercial. But every single person that I know that has gone to that car dealership on the east side has gotten shafted, has gotten pushed to the used car lot, has not been promoted, in their wishes and their needs been considered. And so all of the promises that the East Side car dealership has promised in the past has not led to anything that tangible or anything in fruition. So here we got this new car dealership on the North Side, right? They're making the same type of promises, but at least there is not a track record of disappointment behind him. Okay, so let's go to Donald Trump has this, President Trump has this platinum plan of promises, right? A platinum plan of promises. What other promises have you promised in the past? You promised us the wall that Mexico was going to pay for, and that you took money from the U.S. Department of Defense to pay for. That half of it fell down with Hurricane Harvey, right? That's what you promised us, and you didn't deliver on that promise. You promised us a better health care plan, right? Once you get rid of Obamacare, but you still haven't crafted the plan yet. You promised that you was going to hire the best and the brightest, but you hired Betsy DeVos to lead the Department of Education, and she has no experience as a teacher. She has no experience as a principal, as a superintendent. She has no experience as an educational aide in the classroom. She has never opened a school, never ran a school. So how are you going to run the Department of Education? You hired a really brilliant brain surgeon for little neonatal babies. God bless him. He has gifted hands. However, the hands that he has, they may have built things to help neonatal children, but they have never put nail to hammer to wood to build any type of housing or dwelling. So why is he leading the housing and urban development? We also have a person in what I think is the most critical thing, right? We have this sycophant, who I would call a sycophant, who is doing everything he can, right, to find legal reasons why things that should not be legal should still be going on. In Bill Barr, as the U.S., right? He's supposed to be the U.S. Attorney General. However, he is now taking my taxpayer dollars, right, to defend President Trump in a personal lawsuit, right? A personal defamation lawsuit. Something that happened before he was president, something that he denied while he's president. And so now just because he denied it while he's president, Bill Barr says that the American people should be on the hook to defend this man in court? Absolutely not. So you promised you were going to hire the best and the brightest. We understand that did not happen. You promised us a wall, and it didn't happen. You promised us better health care, and it has not happened. You promised that we would win so much we would get tired of winning, but we're losing every day. Upwards of 200,000 lives, right?
But let me say this: some of these promises, though, some of these promises that he's given out. Let's be honest. Some of this stuff we didn't ask for as Black Americans.
But
We-
irrespective of if
yeah.
we didn't ask for it, we might, as Black America, get behind this plan, right? If you have a track record of delivering on the promises of the past. Okay, I give you, we were not prioritized in your first term, in the list of promises in your first term. So, okay, maybe we on the list in your proposed second term. However, I cannot trust you to deliver on this promise for me, because the promise you promised those people already, you haven't delivered on.
All right. So Reginald, okay, go ahead, Phil. You wanted to say something, chime in?
Just real quick, I was going to say, just to add into what Reginald's saying, the president's actions are consistent with someone who really doesn't believe in his own plan. So,
President didn't understand the plan that was written for him and given to him.
Right. So, give an example. President Trump just recently came out and said he doesn't believe that there's any systemic or institutional racism in government, corporate America, and America in general. And then go so far as to, eliminate or require that we eliminate the anti-racism training in federal
diversity training. Mm-hmm.
So if you want to, really increase the amount of spending with Black-owned businesses from the federal government, you have to get rid of those pockets of resistance that are built-in systemic racism. And his actions right now suggest otherwise. So that's part of what I think, in addition to his track record, his current actions just don't align with this plan.
Exactly. And it is so blatantly obvious, right? Because 2 weeks ago is when he declared through executive order that the diversity training in federal agencies would be eliminated. Later on, a couple of days later, he then expanded that to and suggested that it should be expanded to government contracts, diversity training. If we read this plan,
let's be specific, because he said it wasn't just diversity training, because they still have diversity training on the federal level. It was the critical race theory training, that model, using that model and the tenets of critical race theory. It wasn't diversity training. You can never get rid of a president by an executive order cannot cancel diversity training in the government. So there's still diversity training. And I can tell you this, I'm a veteran, so being in the military, so there was tons of diversity training we had to go through. So some of this stuff is so woven into the manuals and directives, whether in or out of the military, but at the federal level in these agencies, by executive fiat, a president can't really accomplish that. But so it was a critical race theory training, which not everybody agrees on that. I'm not familiar with it. I've heard people express positive opinion of it and negative opinion of it. But that would seem, me not being familiar and seeing that, I would scratch my head and go, well, it seems like you're sending a contradictory message, because
absolutely.
I think you're finna point out something, because I caught something in this platinum plan too, because it's a bullet point or one or two bullet points about this sort of diversity
training
and education.